Hi everyone, welcome back to day 2 of cold turkey withdrawn from Sertraline, which is an SSRI medication or an antidepressant. And today I've noticed that I've started with a lot of energy. I'm starting to feel my personality come back in a little bit more. Definitely feeling more motivated to kind of get out there and have new experiences, whether that's going to see a DJ or go to a gig, and really starting to connect with music more, which is really nice to have. I have noticed a little bit that my sleep has been impacted quite a bit, so I'm noticing that I'm waking up randomly, sometimes after a couple of hours, sometimes 5 hours in, and just in general it seems to be a little bit harder to have more consistent sleep. I kind of expected this, so I'm not too bothered about it. It's just something that I've got to accept. For you it might be different. Everybody responds differently to how sleep impacts them, or the lack of sleep thereof. But as I mentioned in my previous video, when I was going through long COVID, so I basically got COVID back in August 2024, and a few months in I developed long COVID or post-viral illness, and that was basically all the time impacting my sleep. So I'm at the point now where I'm so used to having impacted sleep that with how minor this has been, withdrawn off the sertraline, it's actually not bothering us too much. So sometimes, as I mentioned, going through that suffering, going through those hardships is actually a way of making you stronger. So for situations like withdrawn in the past, I remember it was quite a harrowing experience, quite difficult. And I'm not going to lie, there's definitely been some moments in the past couple of days of coming off the medication that I've had really intense emotions. Sometimes I've felt really sad, like I've wanted to cry, and sometimes I've felt really almost manic, full of energy and wanting to do stuff, wanting to go out there and ride my bike and feel the wind on my face. But yeah, for me, for day 2, the most notable things have been the heightened emotions, feeling amplified sadness, feeling very nostalgic, feeling very hyper sometimes. Like I say, really wanting to go out there and kind of, take on the world. I'm feeling really, really motivated at the moment. But because these emotions tend to swing quite a bit every 2 or 3 hours, I can tell it's more a product of coming off the medication rather than that just being a normal mood. And I would say in particular that the nighttime is the hardest. That does tend to be the case for pretty much everything in life. So, whether you're ill, whether you're stressed, whether you're withdrawn from medication like sertraline, everything seems to be amplified on the night. And I've noticed that I feel a lot more melancholy on the night. I'm very reflective. I can be quite sad sometimes. And I've also noticed that some of the anxiety comes out a little bit, but my approach to this whole experience is that it's okay to feel anxious, it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to have intense emotions, what can be very, very intense sometimes. By the way, I apologise for the wind, but I did really, really want to sit outside today just because it's quite warm. It's a little bit breezy though, but it's really nice to sort of feel the wind on my face there. And that's something I'd really advocate as well. Just try to ground yourself in nature, whether it's going for a walk still, whether it's eating healthy food, whether it's just enjoying a summer's breeze. All of this stuff really helps when you're withdrawn off medication, in my opinion. Like I say, I'm not a doctor, so I would always speak to your doctor before coming off your medication. For most people, it's always going to be a case of tapering slowly, just because a lot of people do have really bad side effects if they do decide to cold turkey from the medication. For me, it is the opposite though. Whenever I've tried to taper in the past, it basically just prolongs the really intense feelings, the really intense anger, emotions, sadness, feeling apathetic, lack of energy, sometimes mania, feeling really overwhelmed. For me, that's not normal, and I'd rather just basically rip the band-aid off and get it over with as soon as possible. Again, I'm not advocating that. That can be extremely dangerous for some people, so really do speak to your doctor when you're considering coming off SSRIs or any kind of antidepressant, SNRIs or anything like that. On the flip side, I am giving my body the best possible fighting chance of making this a really smooth process, so I have been eating completely whole foods. I'm gonna be honest, because I was pretty much intolerant of the majority of foods for 8 months during my bout of long COVID, So in case you don't know, post-viral illness or long COVID can actually cause new food intolerances. So I was intolerant to things like lemons, milk, eggs, just random things that were bothering us, and it's not something I've ever been allergic to before. And what I learned through that process was that it's okay to take time with things, but also you want to incorporate a lot of whole foods and things that your body stands the best chance with. And I think that also goes for withdrawing off medication, especially stuff like antidepressants, because it's really powerful. You want to have more consistent moods, you want to have those healthy fats, you want to have vitamins, you want to have phyto compounds from plants, you want to have lots of protein that'll get things repaired in your body, certainly if you're going for walks or doing exercise. Again, I would of course advocate doing that, trying to stay consistent. These things help stabilise your mood. Definitely exercise, and it releases those endorphins, so you want to stick to that if you can when you're withdrawn from medication. For me, I found that really helpful, but again, for you that might be different. Maybe you have some physical disabilities where you can't actually do that, so that's totally fine. But of course, you want to have the best possible nutrition for your body, as you're going to feel a lot better through this process. So yeah, not too many negatives so far, but there's been a lot of positives in the past couple of days. I am feeling very energetic, I'm feeling very motivated, and I am trying to harness that energy. I am of course aware that I don't want to crash and burn, and I don't want to do too much, so I do take some time just to sit and reflect and meditate, do some deep breathing exercises. Again, this can be really helpful, especially if you're getting anxiety spikes, or if you're finding that some of your emotions are amplified, or you're feeling really overwhelmed by that stuff. I also just want to point out, a lot of people do feel this, but I'm getting really intense brain zaps. So this has started to get significantly more powerful the more that time goes on, and the more days where I don't have the medication in my body. Again, this is totally normal. Some people find it very hard to deal with. For me, it doesn't really bother us too much. It's just a funny feeling sometimes. I've noticed when I get a shock, or if I'm walking and I'm turning my head a lot, I've noticed that the brain zaps become amplified. So it seems to be a case where I'm responding more to stimulus and things that take us by surprise. But mainly, I just want to say, stick with it. If you have the conviction that you want to come off medication, whether that's antidepressants or SSRIs, things like Sertraline, stuff like that, then you've got to work with your doctor, of course, first before you make that decision. But for me, I've really pivoted in this past year where I've been going through this chronic illness with long COVID. I've found that it's okay to suffer sometimes. It's just part of who I am. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to have intense emotions. Of course, you want to have things in place that serve you to make that experience less harrowing and less scary. Like I say, things like eating a lot of whole food. You want to try and exercise or do walks where you can. And you also want to have a good mindset, you want to have a good approach, you want to have some techniques in place that you can fall back on. Like I say, for me, doing deep breathing exercises is really helpful. Taking some time just to reflect and sit in silence is really nice. And also just doing those spontaneous things sometimes. Like I say, the other night, I just went for a bike ride. I was feeling really good. I wanted to feel the wind on my face. I wanted to really enjoy the experience. I'm reconnecting with my emotions, things that have been subdued for nearly 4 years now through using Sertraline. So for me, it's a case of going with the flow sometimes, but also understanding that it's okay. You're going to have those intense days and those intense emotions, and it's just part of coming back online and reconnecting with yourself. But yeah, that's a summary of day 2, and I'm hoping that day 3 continues to go much better as it has been lately. I'm feeling really good. Like I said, my personality seems to be coming back in buckets, and I'm really enjoying that, and I'm just taking advantage of that at the moment. In fact, I've just been sitting there just listening to music really loud, just really enjoying it, just really connecting and vibing with that music. And that's part of the human experience, you know. Sometimes we've got to take the good, sometimes we've got to take the bad, and that's totally fine. But I hope this gives you some inspiration, and it gives you some belief that you can do this as well. And I hope you'll continue following along for day 3 as well, which I'll be uploading tomorrow. So thank you very much for listening. Bye for now, guys.